There is shock in a Greece neighborhood after a man was shot to death in a driveway.
I was in my bedroom. I was folding some clothes, and I heard a big boom.
Gunshots rang out just before 3 this afternoon. The victim shot in the head has not been identified. Good evening. I'm Jenny Ryan.
And I'm Doug Embledge. We have little information from police about what happened and if any suspects have been identified. They haven't said that to us. 13 Wham's Carla Rogner is live at the scene on Vintage Lane now with the latest.
Yeah, Doug and Jenny, the shooting happened around 2:45 this afternoon, and investigators are still out here processing the scene. You can see parts of Vintage Lane here are still closed. The medical examiner left just a few minutes ago, and as you said, we don't have many details about what exactly happened here today, but neighbors say news of the fatal shooting was a shock.
I'm in disbelief.
Tom Contrino was watching television in his garage when he heard a loud noise from across the street.
I thought it was a car backfiring. And so I didn't pay any attention to it because it goes on all the time around here. And then next thing you know, I hear sirens, and I'm looking, and the police cars are all lined up down the road. And I got up and looked, and they were all over in the driveway by the garage.
Greece police arrived soon after and confirmed a man was dead in the driveway from a gunshot wound to the head.
I don't know what to say. It's devastating. This is something that, if it happened, whatever happened, I don't know. It shouldn't have happened.
As Tom watched the investigation unfold from his front porch, more neighbors gathered around the crime scene in shock and wondering what happened in their typically calm neighborhood.
I never expect to see nothing like that over here.
Carmen Vasquez heard the gunshot while folding her laundry.
I was very nervous. I did not know what was happening, so I was so scared just looking and hear all the people, rumors, that's it.
Police say there is no risk to the community. Still, many are disturbed to learn about the death of their neighbor.
It's not something you expect.
Never.
In the neighborhood.
Yeah, we were not expecting nothing like that.
And police haven't shared any more information about the victim, and police also haven't said whether any suspects are in custody for this shooting. We are expecting to get more information in the morning.
That shocked our community. A Brighton mother found murdered in her home back in 1982. And now, 40 years later, her husband is on trial. 13 Wham's Jackie Napier spoke exclusively to a man who knew both the victim and the accused killer.
Alec MacArthur grew up only 1 block away from Jim Krauseneck in Mount Clemens, Michigan, the small city where Jim and Kathy first met.
He was pretty quiet. He wasn't a real, super boisterous, outgoing kind of guy, but, he was a nice guy. We got along okay.
MacArthur says that his mother and father were best friends with Jim's parents, Pauline and James Sr. The Krausenecks owned a well-established local flooring company and were well-known in the Mount Clemens community.
Krausenecks was a big carpet company, and they did real well at that. So they always had a boat. And then, so my dad had to get a boat. So we'd go out in Lake St. Clair and go boating and hang out at the island. And that's when we were, pre-10 years old, probably 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years old.
MacArthur's father owned a local dental office, and Kathy worked for him. She was the second oldest in a family of 6 and a popular student at Mount Clemens High.
She was real nice and wonderful, and so they would ask her to babysit now and then.
After graduating from Western Michigan, Jim and Kathy's alma mater, MacArthur joined the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department, eventually becoming a homicide detective. He remembers being stunned when he learned Kathy had been killed in 1982.
Was just dumbfounded that something like that could happen to somebody or were close with at one time.
The case was cold for 37 years until police arrested Jim Krauseneck.
It's definitely interesting to hear, the time frames and things like that. That would be key for me as an investigator.
As the case nears closing arguments, MacArthur says he will be watching and remembering the girl he once knew.
She was a wonderful person and just a sweetheart. We always liked her.
Now, MacArthur, the retired homicide detective, called the Krauseneck case fascinating and said he's particularly interested in the timeline of events and Jim Krauseneck's alleged behavior at work the day Kathy was murdered. The trial is scheduled to continue tomorrow, and as always, 13 Wham will keep you updated on that.
Take a look. These are pandemic leftovers on an abandoned runway in central New York. Blue tarps covering hundreds of thousands of gallons of unused and unusable hand sanitizer. Taxpayers, you and I, paid over $4 million to create it. Now we're going to have to pay to get rid of it. Our money will actually be going to Kodak, more than $2 million to get rid of that expired sanitizer. We all remember what that state sanitizer smelled like. I wouldn't even want to be around it to get rid of it. Let's go to Chase Hall. And Kodak, though, is going to be bringing it here, right, Chase?
Yeah, Don, all 700,000 gallons of this expired New York State clean hand sanitizer will be coming here to Rochester, where it will be distilled and used for manufacturing purposes, a process that the state says will take up to 44 weeks to complete. This is what $4.3 million in hand sanitizer looks like, enough to take up part of this old airport tarmac in central New York. This week, the 700,000 gallons of unused and expired sanitizer will arrive in Rochester, where it'll be disposed of at Eastman Business Park.
It's outrageous. But, I mean, everything going on the taxpayer's dole right now. And that's not right.
I caught up with New York State lawmaker Harry Bronson, who says this is the first time he was hearing about the issue. But he did say New York State taxpayers will likely be on the hook for the cost of shipping the sanitizer and getting rid of it.
Tax dollars are for the public good. And, it's not my fault that, there's potholes in the streets, but I pay for them.
Brett Wilkins says the extra hand sanitizer should have gone to places in need like hospitals, child care centers, and schools before it expired.
Personally, I don't think it's fair that us who have not made a mistake should have to pay for something.
Vicki Milne said she was left with more questions than answers when she learned the sanitizer was being shipped to Rochester.
What are they going to do at Kodak? How are they going to get rid of it? That's what I want. Well, it's another question. How are they going to get rid of it?
And I did reach out to Eastman Business Park to find out the answer to that question, but have not heard back yet. And a little perspective here. There was a time during the pandemic where we couldn't find toilet paper, let alone hand sanitizer. That's why the state decided to ramp up production.